What up friends, I'm James, your host, and today I'm going to be reviewing the new Billie Eilish album, When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? This is the debut album by new smash hit artist Billie Eilish. Now everything that can be said about Billie Eilish pretty much has already been said. She's had a lot of fame, praise, and controversy so early in her career, and she had these few sample tracks on SoundCloud to get her started, but honestly she never really appealed to me that much. I just could never really get into her sound. I found it a bit boring and kind of generic, and honestly I thought her image was way more cutting edge than her actual music was. However, this being her first big project, I wanted to give it a chance. And to be honest, I'm kind of glad I did, because there's quite a few unique things that are going on here, and her album establishes her personality way more than any of her previous songs did. So with that, let's just jump into it. Now, her brother actually produced all of the songs on these tracks and wrote the lyrics for two, so in this respect they can kind of be seen as a joint effort among their parts. However, this is kind of important because a lot of the dynamic on this album, I feel, relies on how tight-knit and close they are and how understanding of what each other wants from this album's sound. Bad Guy is a very strong opener. It begins with a very strong and dark, bass-heavy instrumental. It is almost reminiscent of some Darkwave songs that I find. The track gradually ebbs and flows and provides an upbeat support for her more mumbly, sinister vocals. And although it is dark, it establishes a bit of a playful side as well, with lyrics taunting a lover, possibly expressing hypocrisy of how the man can be seen as playing around or being bad but the woman can't. And I do like the hint of self-awareness or sarcasm at the end of the chorus with the duh. I think that's pretty funny, to be honest. Zanny is, ironically enough, an anti-drug song talking about the effect of Xans and how they often ruin people's lives, or at the very least make people a lot less interesting. Musically, it's a weird mixture of intense wobbling trap pop and almost vocal jazz drum segments that you'd see in like a big band song or something. It's a very strange combination of sounds, but it's pretty effective in showing both the glamour and the pain of the drug lifestyle. You Should See Me in a Crown is probably my favorite song on the record. It's an interesting glimpse into her confidence in her career, an aspect that she doesn't really touch on any other songs on this album, really. It's a bit of an ego booster, but the instrumentation with the rising synths and the haunting bass, especially during the chorus, it can possibly be seen as how being famous is honestly a curse in a lot of respects. The distorted samples and vocals also add to the sense of the dark side to fame. You see me in a crown. Your silence is my favorite sound. Like, damn. The Darkwave elements also kind of peak out again during the chorus with the backbeat, and it's an element that's prevalent on quite a few of these songs here and there, but it's most apparent in the first half of this record. It's a subtle touch, but I do appreciate it. All the Good Girls Go to Hell is another favorite of mine, and one that shows off her vocals a bit more, actually. You're immediately gripped with these bouncy keys and a bass that just demands your attention. It's an interesting commentary on religion, calling out the hypocrisy of who apparently gets into heaven and how a lot of good people would be seen as going to hell by extreme religious standards. There's also quite a few allusions to climate change in the song as well, especially during the chorus, and it ties into the religious aspect pretty nicely. It seems that she's saying with the idea of an afterlife, it leads many to not care about what happens in our world here and now. And it's pretty interesting because the synths at the end of the chorus remind me of like this 80s B-movie horror movie. It's really weird and kind of campy, but I really like it. It adds a bit of a fun element to what is essentially a darker song. Now, overall, I have to say that the second half of the album is a bit weaker compared to the first half. Wish You Were Gay is actually pretty good. this song isn't that interesting musically. Not as interesting as the other songs on the album, at least. But I do like how playful it is. The acoustic guitar and the more basic beat don't help the song that much, but I think lyrically it's pretty good, and I can see it being relatable for a lot of people. This one definitely grew on me a lot more since my first listen, and I think it fits the album's sound even if it is a bit more generic. Now, I want to talk about the two ballady songs on the track, When the Party's Over and Listen Before I Go. These are, to me, the weakest songs on the album. The former represents probably one of the biggest problems about this album, is that sometimes the songs feel like they just drift aimlessly without a proper conclusion. This one in particular is super stripped back. There's not much happening other than her vocals and these little piano chords here and there, and her vocals just aren't enough to carry the song. Granted, it's not all on her because the production on this track also isn't very interesting, with only the piano, like I said before, and a few instances of some vocal effects that, yeah, they make the song have a bit more of a sinister touch, I suppose, but it just doesn't really enhance the vibe all that much, and it doesn't make the song more interesting to listen to. The latter is honestly the same as the former. It's a pretty similar sounding track, although the lyrics are a bit more personal and they're a bit better overall, so that kind of puts it above a little bit. But honestly, these two moments are very similar and kind of boring and unnecessary in the grand scheme of this album. 8 and My Strange Addiction kind of represent the more fun sides of this album. 8 is a bit more quirky with its ukulele-themed instrumentation of all things. The lyrics kind of fit the more stripped-back nature of this song by sounding more like a sad poem than anything. I will say that this song in particular is a bit unfitting for the album's sound. It is a bit of a lighter break from the dark and heavy instrumentals that we've had previously, but I feel like you didn't need that break when the sounds previously were so sparse and they give you a lot of time to breathe already. I don't think this lighter approach to the instrumentation was really necessary. The latter, My Strange Addiction, represents the dark humor that I really enjoy throughout these songs. And the bass line on this one is this totally twisted version of an electropop song that I hear from the late 2000s or early 2010s. It's pretty hilarious, honestly. It's definitely a highlight with lyrics questioning why she even likes the things that she does. It's seemingly a lover in this scenario. It's pretty funny, tongue-in-cheek, and witty. Now we get to Bury a Friend, the big old single from this album. It's an interesting song, to be honest. It has a very sparse, almost horror movie sounding sense of production on this one. The vocals really give me some Lorde vibes, especially the moans throughout the different verses on this track. Lyrically, it's also a pretty interesting take about looking through the eyes of fear, kind of like a monster under the bed sort of thing, where you're looking through the monster's eyes. It's very suspenseful, and it sets up its atmosphere pretty well with these sort of medical equipment samples that sound like you'd be in a demented hospital listening to this. This song also has a bit of a problem with not culminating very well. It doesn't go to too many different places. It kind of stagnates in one place. However, the production is experimental enough that it doesn't really need to. It kind of gets the job done on its own, and it honestly grew on me quite a bit. Ilomilo is yet another favorite of mine. There's a lot of favorites with these sort of weirder songs. And I love the premise of using a video game about reuniting characters to represent a fear of separation. I think that's super clever. The production has a very whimsical vibe with some bubbly bass sounds and vocal effects, but it also has some sinister undertones as well that seem to come out of an Alice in Wonderland playbook or something. This one in particular, I think, has a great blend and mesh of the production and the vocals. They go really well together on this track. I Love You is a bit of a tone change from a production standpoint. It's much more natural instrumentally. It fits the lyrics about broken hearts and forgotten loves, and I love the harmony of Billie and her brother's vocals. I kind of want to see him sing more because of this, to be honest. Get some harmonies going. I think it could be really unique, and maybe not on every song, and I'll be just overdoing it, but kind of bring him in a little bit more. I like this sort of combination of their vocals a lot on this track. Might be something to think about later down the line. It also shows how tight-knit they are, as I mentioned at the beginning of this review, and how they even work well together outside of the singer and producer dynamic. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised with this album. Billie and her brother have a dynamic that produces songs that sound intimate and raw and real, and it honestly feels like this album could only have been created between two people that understand each other as much as they do. There are some problems about not knowing how to finish a song or break out of this stagnating progression, and sometimes I do feel that the lyrics could be a bit more fleshed out. However, she is still starting out, and honestly, this is a great step forward in just creating an atmosphere and creating an image for yourself as well. I really like the humor that she's displaying on a lot of these tracks. It's very dark, it's very, very raw, if you will, and I like how they play along with space and simplicity, but still manage to make songs feel fulfilling and layered, too. She also balances that humor with the serious aspects, which is sometimes hard to do, so it's good to see that she managed to fulfill that for the most part. All in all, it's a great first major project, and I'm looking forward to hear even more experimental things done down the line, because if this is what it is compared to her previous work, then I think she can go even further from here. Her brother as well. So yeah, I'm feeling a light 8 on this. I was thinking a strong 7, but I'm going to push it up to a light 8 for this. Of course, we do have to talk about the album cover, and I do like the album cover. It's fitting for the more dark and sort of dark humor aspects to this album. I feel like they could have focused on the entire room as opposed to just her on the bed. The sort of fuzzy erasure of everything outside of the bed looks a bit weird to me. It looks a bit photoshoppy to me. I feel like it would have been much more effective to just have the full room there. But overall, I think it's a very fitting album cover, and it definitely establishes the vibe of the album, that's for sure. So, those were my thoughts on Billie Eilish's When We All Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? Throw It Away! What did you think about this album? Did it live up to the hype for you, all you Billie Eilish fans out there? Did you not listen to it at all because she's an industry plant? Well, let me know what you think in the comments. And until the next one, farewell.